This is an extract from a 1-hour interview. To watch the full interview, you can click below to join the Get Gallery Ready course. Until then, enjoy the video. Hi, Polly.
Hi.
Nice to see you in the studio.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining me here.
So I'm going to quickly introduce you, but I'll let you tell the people a bit more. You are an artist working primarily in painting and drawing, and you go to really remote, isolated, interesting places. Lately, you went to Antarctica, and this body of work, at least part of it, is currently on show at the time of this recording with John Martin Gallery and your solo show. So, yeah, really excited to have you, Polly. And if you want to tell us a bit more about what you do.
Okay, so yeah, I paint and I draw, as you say. I guess primarily I'm an oil painter, but I also do work in acrylic occasionally. And in terms of drawing, I work mostly in charcoal, but I weave other mediums into it. And in terms of what I paint, yeah, I paint landscapes. And I guess over the trajectory of my work, I've been doing it for 25 years. So I think the places that I've been interested in have become increasingly remote and hostile, perhaps. Perhaps fragile is a word that I would use a lot in the places I go to, places where the landscape is particularly at risk or already under threat. And I think I like places that are very quiet, places where the landscape gently, quietly unfolds in front of you. And then the work I make from it, it's figurative work, but it's not what I would call photorealist. It's quite, in some respects, I sort of remove things from the landscape and recontextualize them, or try and make people look again at places they might think they know.
You're doing a major solo show with John Martin Gallery, and the works that you're showing with John Martin are the result of this residency that you had in Antarctica. So tell me sort of the timeline. Did you meet John Martin before going to Antarctica, or did you already have this body of work? How did sort of your relationship with your gallery, the solo show, and the residency all take place?
I guess the way it happened, so I saw the residency advertised. Pretty much as soon as I saw it, I had this gut feeling that it was going to happen. It's hard to explain how and why that happens. It's a huge residency. It's really very competitive, and I'm not arrogant in that respect, but I just felt like it had to happen somehow, if not now, sometime. It seemed so right for my work. So I applied, was extremely lucky to get it. And then at the same time, I was also curating these exhibitions that meant a lot to me, things that I felt were really important. So I curated an exhibition of contemporary female landscape painters. And as you're no doubt aware, there's a huge gender disparity in the arts, and particularly landscape painting has always been considered very much a male domain. So I was really keen to bring together a group of contemporary, interesting female landscape painters specifically. And so I put on this, actually there was two shows that I was curating at the same time. The other exhibition was an exhibition is in a small place called the Alpine Club, which is a club for sort of elite mountain climbers, of which I'm not, but I did paint a lot of mountains. And they have this incredible, wonderful, historic collection of art specifically to do with mountains, of which I've forgotten the actual numbers now. It's something pretty shocking, like they have 600 pieces and only 20 of them by women. So I decided to pull the women's work out of that collection and curate an exhibition about women's mountain painting, and also bring in a bunch of contemporary female artists who make work about mountains and sit the two side by side. So I had these two shows that I felt very passionately about. And off the back of those two shows, I was flyering galleries and going around to galleries and trying to tell them what these shows were about and trying to encourage them to come and see them. And because I felt so passionately, I was able to go in and say, these are really great shows and you should really come. So I went into the John Martin Gallery and met with Laura, who works there. He's a very lovely person. And I was telling her about them. And she said, oh, this sounds really exciting. I'll tell John. And then in walked John, and she said, look, why don't you just tell John about the show now, because he's here. And so I did. And I was really, because I was so passionate, and so I was really sure that I'd actually brought together a really interesting group of people. And I thought it was really something that he should see. And to my shock, he said, yeah, great, sounds great, I'll come. So he did come, and he liked a lot of the work, and in particular, he liked my work, which is a bonus. And he said, I'd love to curate you into a group show. So I said, fantastic, brilliant. He said, that's going to be in February. And I said, perfect, you can have the work, absolutely. But just so you know, I won't be in the country in February. And he said, oh, where will you be? And I said, oh, actually, I'll be in Antarctica. And that was kind of the beginning of how it progressed for us. So he was obviously excited by that. And I think we could both see right from the start that there was a lot of potential for the relationship, because I had potentially a large body of work from this really exciting place and a really interesting sort of story as well to go with it. And I think he could see that I was not only curating shows, but I'd also been working very doggedly for a long time on my own work, that I was trying to keep the standards as high as I could, that I was a sort of professional. And I think it just really worked. And it was a shock when he offered me a solo show after just, I think I was curated into 2 group shows of his, and then he offered me a solo show. And it was a shock, but I think I could really see that it was definitely going to work for both of us. And I guess you could just say the sort of stars aligned in the sense that I had something really great to offer, and he could see that I had the capacity to come through with goods, if you know what I mean. Even though I hadn't made them at that stage, I think he could see from my work history that I could definitely do the job. So yeah, that's how it came about. And then I did the residency. So that was 5 weeks in Antarctica.
So if we rewind the track a bit, because I'm really interested in this. So you said you were flyering galleries with these 2 shows. How many galleries did you approach? And yeah, what was that process like?
Well, I think it's fair to say I'm an introvert. So the process of flying galleries is never a comfortable one. In fact, it's a really deeply uncomfortable one. But I think because I was very passionate about this body of work, you know, this group of artists, and I felt really strongly that people should see the show, that it was a really important show, and that it talked about really interesting things like women's safety, which is never really taken into account in terms of making landscape work. So I thought there was loads of really interesting angles, and I just felt very strongly that this was an important show and that people should see it. So in terms of going into those galleries, whilst it's way out of my comfort zone, I felt like I was really able to say, this is good, you should come. And I didn't fly a huge amount of galleries actually in terms of personally going in, but I really wanted to sort of target those galleries that I felt a potential relationship could be made. So galleries that had landscape artists on their books, or had an interest in figurative work, or just various aspects of the show that I thought would really work with that gallery. And John Martin was one of the key ones where I felt like a relationship could be made based on his history of who he shows and things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 2 tips or 2 golden nuggets here. The first one being actually being targeted in your approach. So
research, yeah.
Doing your research beforehand, saying what are the galleries that align with my practice, with my style, where do I think I could fit in, and approaching those so that you're preserving your energy. Because as you say, approaching a gallery, whether you're sending an email, whether you're going in person, to do it right, it takes time and energy. But also, I think a tip that you gave for introverts or artists in general, I think, you know, talking about your work and feeling like you're promoting your work can be a really uncomfortable thing. And this will apply to, I'm sure, any artist watching. I believe in the reason why I've put this show together. I believe in the reason why I'm making this work. So it's not about me.
No, it's about authenticity, isn't it? As much as anything, definitely. Yeah. But I would also say, certainly my experience of being in the arts is that, and I have a little phrase that I use, which is that you have to be able to, in my case, you have to be able to paint and tap dance. In other words, you have to be able to make the work, but you also have to be, to a degree, a performer. And there just isn't, in our contemporary sort of world of art, you can't avoid having to put on a face, put on a hat. And so I would also say put the work in on yourself to get yourself good at it, because realistically you need it. If that's whatever that means to you, doing a course, getting some therapy, whatever it takes to get yourself to the position where you can stand up in front of a group of people and say what's important or talk about your work. You just have to be able to do it. I'd say, yeah, for sure. Be passionate about what you do. And something I've always done right from the start is I've try to be as professional as I can. So if I'm going to put something on the wall, I try and make sure it's the best I can do, or has been framed in a really beautiful way. Or I take even small opportunities. Like, opportunities are rare, they're hard to come by. You have to take every opportunity and really be a professional with it, and make sure that you're always treating yourself and your work and the people that you work with respect and integrity. So, but keeping at it, keeping up the drive is really important.
Thank you for watching this clip from our interview. To watch the full 1-hour interview and get practical advice to work with galleries, then click the link below and join the Get Gallery Ready course. This in-depth course for artists includes 5 sessions covering everything you need to know about galleries, 5 interviews with artists sharing their top tips with you, and 5 interviews with gallery directors so you can hear directly what they look for, how to approach them, how to get represented by a gallery, and so much more. Until then, we hope you enjoyed this video, and you can click below to learn more and get started.